Hey everybody, this is a Shadowbox. As you can see, we have just been vectored for landing, well, for our approach, into Grand Rapids International by FSX's default ATC. This is part 2 of my Embraer ERJ-135LR simple tutorial. Remember, we are not using the SIDS and stars that are stored in our flight management system, but we are just using default FSX ATC. So what we're going to do is we've got a manual heading plugged into our plane, well, into our autopilot that we received from FSX's ATC. But we're going to take our computer here off of FMS mode and put it on nav mode. So now the navigation radio is controlling our compass, and eventually will control our autopilot. Now they have vectored us to runway 35 for Grand Rapids International Airport. Our nav radio is on the right hand side here. Actually, that's a better view for it. So we'll push this button and switch over to here. I happen to know the frequency for runway 35 is 111.9. So we'll go ahead and switch that. Acknowledge ATC. Oops. The click spots on this knob are kind of weird. Like directly left and right influence the big numbers, and slightly down influence the decimal. So there we go, 111.9 is standing by, ready for our approach. And when it's time, our course is going to be on 355. There we go. Now they probably won't actually vector us for landing for quite a while. Let's return. Oops, I calculated our descent speed a little too early. That was a mistake. We'll set, if you click this button here, it will set your MFD to display either nav points or airports. I usually have it set to both, and we'll increase. Here's our airport here. 320. I'm looking at the co-pilot's thing here. That should be 320. Yep. Excellent. Well, I don't believe I've shown you what this looks like from the outside, or at least not very well. So let's take a look at that. This is the Embraer ERJ-135 by FeelThere and Wilco Publishing. And I can move my camera like this because I'm using an add-on called EasyDock Camera. I've noticed it has a bit of a tendency to crash. It's probably just a mod conflict that I have, but 90% of the time it works flawlessly, and it works really well. So, yeah, we're flying over Michigan right now. I'm pretty familiar with this route, though admittedly not from the air. I usually drive it from Toledo, Ohio to Grand Rapids, Michigan. When I was in high school, my mom lived in Grand Rapids and my dad lived in Toledo. And every third weekend of the month or so, I would drive down to Toledo and see my dad for the weekend. So, yep. That's, I believe that's either Lansing or Ann Arbor right there, and that should be either US 96 or US 23 running there. I haven't really been paying attention throughout the flight, but I've just kind of been staring at the screen and waiting for the time when I can bring you guys back to see the approach. Let's see, we're about 50 miles away from Grand Rapids, so yeah, that's definitely not Ann Arbor. It might be Lansing. which means that's probably 96. Let's take a walk through the cabin. This does have a virtual cabin. It's, as you can see, it's a pretty standard regional jet. And the FeelThere team did a really good job on the interior here, in my opinion anyway. I do have a lot of IRL flight time, but as a passenger, not as a pilot. And this cabin is... I've never had the pleasure of flying in a regional jet, or in an ERJ rather, but I've always wanted to. Never really got the chance though. Most of the flying I did was between Los Angeles and Detroit, so that's a little too much for a jet like this to handle. I flew mostly Airbuses and 737s, so usually Airbus A319s, I believe. We just got sent all the way down to 2,500. So we'll go ahead and run through our before descent checklist.
Before descent checklist. FMS, RMU, speed set. Set.
High speed.
End of checklist.
Alright, there we go. Remember, this plane does not have an auto throttle, so you're in control of the throttle at all times, and I forgot to reduce it before telling the airplane to descend. So that's why we got that overspeed warning. This is my either 4th or 5th attempt at finishing this tutorial. Other times I forgot to turn on my mic, or FSX crashed, or I've had other commitments I had to attend to. Oh, speaking of other commitments, the reason that it took me a little bit longer to push this video out, I know I promised it for like Monday or Tuesday, and you guys probably aren't going to see it till Wednesday. I finally got a summer job. I'm working for a local construction supply company, so that's neat. I do have some experience in construction and carpentry, even though I'm going to school for engineering. It's aeronautical engineering, as a matter of fact. So it has nothing to do with my major or with my schooling or anything, but I do have experience in it, so I start that tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. So I'm looking forward to that. Take some stress off my shoulders, though it does mean I won't have quite as much time for flying, but in order to make up for the fact, I'll probably record more often, so you should be seeing videos at about the same rate, even though I won't have as much time for flying. And let's see, I plan on continuing like the tutorial series. After this video, the next tutorial I'm going to do is either going to be the advanced FMS tutorial for you know, the ERJ-135LR, or I might do a basics of flight tutorial just with the default Cessna 172, show you guys how to use your navigation equipment, talk about speeds, stalls. I've seen a lot of people lately are just getting into flight simulation, so I don't want to make any assumptions as to what you guys know how to do. So yep, either one of those will be coming up. Of course, the air hauler series is still going, though I have not flown in the last few days because I'm still trying to decide what my next airplane should be. I'm stuck between the Cessna C310 or the Cessna C208 Grand Caravan. The C310 is Oh man, I don't know if it's a turboprop or a piston. I think it's a turboprop, but it's a twin engine, and it has a significant speed advantage over the Caravan, but it also carries only half the cargo, and it's not double the speed. So, I mean, it is cheaper than the Caravan. The Caravan is a single-engine turboprop, holds about 2,000 pounds of cargo, compared to the C310's roughly 1,000 pounds of cargo. So, yep. Let's go ahead and engage our navigation radio here. And now we have guidance to runway 35 at Grand Rapids International Airport, Gerald R. Ford International Airport. And once we turn on to our final approach, I will go ahead and engage the approach checklist. And once we have the runway in sight, we'll go for before landing checklist. The approach checklist is really easy. I believe we just restart the APU. And before landing checklist is just flaps and landing gear. So, shouldn't be that hard. And I'm actually going to use the autopilot on approach mode to capture the glide slope and localizer. So, really this should go pretty well. Also, if you notice the frame rates are lower in this video than in my other videos, I apologize. I turned on light bloom in my settings, which I hadn't had on before. The only other video I had it on in was my episode 3 of Air Hauler. And I didn't anticipate the frame impact it would have while I was recording. It's not really noticeable when I'm not recording, but oh, hang on.
Approach checklist.
Altimeters.
Set.
Pressurization.
Checked. APU. On. Fasten seatbelts. No smoking. On. End of checklist.
Alright, so, yeah, I was saying, I'm getting frame rates in the teens, and normally when I'm recording I get it in the 20s. So, however, the light bloom makes, especially like, dusk and night, it makes it look really, really good. So, let me know if you would rather have the light bloom and have slightly lower frames, or if you would rather have me turn off the light bloom when I'm recording, because that's really not a big deal. I can do that no problem. So let me know what you prefer, and again, I'm sorry if this video is has lower frames than what you're used to from me. Normally I try to get around between 25 and 30, and right now I'm getting about 15. So it is pretty significant. However, I'm surprised at how how smooth 15 frames looks in this game compared to other games. And I know, it's not a game, it's a simulator. It's on the computer. It's, I like taking FSX seriously as well, but when it comes down to it, the difference between simulator and game is not the end of the world. Oh, if they tell me to go around, I'm not going to be a happy camper. This is all the autopilot right now. Capturing the localizer and glide slope. Now this plane does not have auto land. We will get down to an altitude and our RAAS will say minimums, and that's when we need to disengage the autopilot and take over ourselves. Okay, there's the runway in sight right here. Let's go ahead and run through the before landing checklist.
Before landing checklist. Landing gear. Down. Flaps.
Flaps need to be at 22.
Autopilot.
Autopilot will be turned off once we get to minimums. I will probably pause when we get to minimums just so I can safely look over and turn off the autopilot, because I have neglected to map an autopilot quick disconnect button. So, yep. I'll have to do that after this video. Need a little more throttle to maintain our approach speed of 142. We're getting pretty close to stall speed. So, remember, no auto throttle, so we're playing with the throttle ourselves now to keep our speed where it needs to be.
Approaching minimums. Minimums.
There's minimums. Autopilot off. And resume.
Minimums.
Autopilot. Autopilot.
Off. End of checklist.
100.
Gliding down the runway. Touchdown was way too late. Whoa. Okay, frame rates are noticeably bad. And our left wheel is off the runway. Excellent.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at our destination. Please remain seated with your seatbelt.
Well, not my best landing, but not my worst either.
We hope
So.
your flight was a pleasant one. Thank you for flying with us. We hope to see you again soon.
After landing checklist. Exterior lights off. Ice protection checked. Transponder. Standby. Gust lock. On. Flaps. Trims.
Okay, so we need to retract our flaps and set our trims to 7. Whoops. Okay.
0. 7 up. End of checklist.
Now, I promised a neat add-on for my friend Infinite Lives, and I'm about to show it to you guys now. It's called Ground Services X. So we're taxiing to gate Bravo 2. Request follow me car. Oh. And there went the frame rates. Okay. Now we're down to 12. So yeah, I will most likely be turning off light bloom for following videos. So we're waiting for a car to come out and guide us. I think I can see it down there. Is that it? Yep, that's it right there. He's a bit slow, isn't he? Alright. Yeah, this add-on is really neat. It simulates the loading and the unloading of your aircraft. It doesn't work too well with the aircraft I have right now, just because of how small this is, but with add-ons like, it'll probably work well with the MD-80 that you have Infinite Lives. And it definitely works well with bigger ones such as the Airbus X Extended by Aerosoft, stuff like that. I mean, it still works with this plane, but just not all the features are available for it. Alright, so we're coming up. We have the gust lock on to stop us from just taking off down the runway. So the follow me car should do pretty well at matching our speed. And once we get to the gate, there should be marshalers waiting for us to guide us in. If the gate doesn't have a jetway, or with a smaller plane like this that just has stairs that come out of the door, it will dispatch a bus to load and unload your passengers. All of the airport vehicles are redesigned and actually look like their real-life counterparts now. However, GSX isn't active on its own. It's only active like for your gate or your parking spot. So the AI traffic will not have the GSX services. And I assume that's to save on frame rates. Speaking of frame rates, we're back up to 15, so... But yeah, especially since most of my flights on YouTube are probably going to be daytime flights. There's really no need to have light bloom on for daytime flights, so I most likely will disable it for future videos. This is Ground Services X. It's available for, I paid $40 for it. In my opinion, it's very much worth it. It adds a lot of immersion to the game, to the simulator, whatever. And I will be doing a full review of all the features at a later date. I'm not exactly sure when, but I will do it. And once we get larger aircraft in air hauler, we will be using it for air hauler. Even though we don't have any passengers, it does have cargo loading options as well. I mean, it'll still send the passenger bus out, but we can just ignore that, right? Right. And I want to say thank you to you guys. I just checked my subscriber count today, and I'm up to 13, I believe, which is quite good for me. When I first started making videos again, I think I only had 2, so my channel's grown by like 7 times. So thank you guys, and thanks for sticking it out with me. I plan on bringing you more content, and once I get my work schedule nailed down, hopefully we'll be able to work out some sort of regular upload schedule. What line did he just take off down? Here. I think going a little too fast. We'll come off the throttle now. This is only the second time I've ever used the follow me car in the marshaller, so I'm probably not going to get this parking job perfect. You can see the marshaller there with his cones. Come left, I think is what that means. Come straight in and stop. Or is that still come straight in? It's probably still come straight in. Let's set the parking brake and see what happens. Nope, that still comes straight in. Let's come forward a bit. Oh. Stop. Please cut engines. Alright. Set the parking brake. Whoops. That's what happens when you try to do a default view switch when you have this enabled. Cut the engines. Yeah, shut up. You parked a bit too far and askew. Oh well, you can live with it. Okay. So, let's pull up our parking checklist.
Parking checklist. Fasten seatbelt, no smoking. Off. Hydraulic electrical pump. Off. Red beacon. Off. APU. Off. End of checklist.
Yeah, shut up. Okay. Let's jump outside again. Let's open up some doors. And request deboarding. The engines are cut. Thank you very much. Oh, what is it? Okay.
Leaving checklist. Fuel pump power.
Whoops, that's the battery.
Off. Emergency lights. Off. Battery. Off. See you later, Captain. End of checklist.
Okay.
Alright, so that's our aircraft powered down. Let's jump outside and look at the ground services. Baggage handler. Since we're at the gate, they probably didn't send the passenger bus. Especially since there's a jetway here. Normally there is one of those big old passenger buses. Yep, deboarding's completed. But as you can see, there's catering and refueling, boarding. The pushback and departure is really good. But we'll get to all that stuff at a later video. As you can see, this tug will come around and connect, and you see it looks much better than the default FSX, and there will even be another marshaller who hooks up the tug and walks beside the aircraft as you're being pushed back. Anyway, it's really, really good. Anyway, that's it for this video. That's it for this ERJ-135 tutorial. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm A Shadowbox, and have a good one.